Good evening and welcome to Across the Pitch. We're the soccer show for people who think the National League features teams like the Atlanta Braves and Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, the National League that features those teams that I mentioned is actually a baseball league. In the United States, we have Major League Baseball that is divided into two leagues, the American League and the National League. But since we're a soccer show, we're not going to be talking about that National League. My name is Phil Kennedy, and tonight Darren Woodhead is going to join me to speak with an extra special guest. That guest was recently named to the Accrington Stanley Hall of Fame and is the all-time leader in games played, none other than Paul Mullin. Now, the reason that we mention the National League is in the English soccer pyramid, the fifth tier or the highest non-league tier is known as the National League. You also may hear folks refer to it as the conference from time to time. The National League, the conference are both the same thing, which would be the fifth tier. And of course, teams who are promoted from the National League move up to League Two, which is the fourth tier or the lowest level of fully professional, where the National League is considered semi-professional, and teams that are relegated from League Two are then relegated into the National League. The reason this is so important tonight is because back in 2005, our guest Paul Mullin actually scored the goal that sent Accrington Stanley from the National League into League Two, and they have been in the league ever since. So without further ado, let's welcome Accrington Stanley legend Paul Mullin. Good afternoon or evening, depending on what side of the pond you're on, and welcome to a very special edition of Across the Pitch. We have Accrington Stanley legend and Hall of Famer Paul Mullin joining us this morning. And me and Darren Woodhead are going to sit down and have a little bit of a chat with Paul. And thank you here for joining us on the show, and welcome.
No problem, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Paul. Obviously, we're writing about the club for the last 20 years and getting involved with this podcast. It's always been an ambition of mine to get a few Stanley legends on, and without wanting to embarrass you, they don't come much bigger than yourself, record appearance holder. So I'd just like to start talking about your career, if that's all right. Have talk about your early career. You were a little bit of a late starter, weren't you?
I was, yeah. I mean, I went to university, so when I was a kid, I played for all Burnley's sort of younger teams, but I didn't get taken on in fifth year, which was your final year of senior school over here. Which means then you've got to make a decision: you either get a job or you go into further education. So I studied at college for 2 years, and then went to university for 3 years. So when I came out of university, I was 21, and then I just decided I wanted to try and get back into playing at a decent level. University football, I played for Leeds University while I was there in their first 11s, but it's a different style of football. Fitness certainly isn't a priority at university.
Yeah, I can imagine. You had other priorities.
Exactly. So when I came out of university, I decided to try and play at the highest level I could, really. And I just started out at Accrington, and then I drifted into the North West Counties for 3 years.
Yeah, you spent some time at Clitheroe, didn't you? I noticed, and around 2 or 3 years were you at Clitheroe?
Yeah, I was at Clitheroe for 2.5 years. I was at Stanley for probably around about. I did a pre-season with Stanley. Stanley had a reserve side then, which was some older lads who were trying to get back into the first team, and some younger lads from the local area. And I was playing up front with Brett, actually. Brett had just been released by Blackburn, and then one of the first team forwards got injured, and me and Brett got called into the squad, the first team squad, for an FA Cup game. I can't remember who it was. Brett started, and I was on the bench. I'm not sure if Brett scored that day. And then after that, Brett just basically took off, and obviously had a great career after that. Yeah. So really, there was only one route to the first team, and Brett took it. So I then went to Darwin, actually.
Oh yeah, you played with Chris Grimshaw, didn't you, at Clitheroe, I think? Grimmy.
I did. Yeah.
It must have been some experience.
Yeah, what a character he is.
He's a great lad, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a great talent. Great to be in the dressing room. A good player as well. I mean, I probably saw him right at the end of his football career. But yeah, had a lot of ability. But just a really nice fella. Good to have in a dressing room. Just a barrel of laughs. Must have been a nightmare as a manager to try and keep
I can imagine. Yeah,
keep him real live wire.
Keep him on target, on focus. Yeah, must have
been. No, it's a top bloke.
Yeah. So it first came to my attention playing against Stanley. I must admit, it did bypass me. I saw your name around the reserves, but when the first time you came to my attention, you're actually playing for against Stanley for Radcliffe Borough.
Yeah. I had 2 years
at most historic games.
Yeah, I had a couple of years at Radcliffe. And I remember the game. I think it was the Crown Ground as it was then. I think we might have won we won the away game at the Crown Ground. I think we won it 3-1. I scored 2 in that game. And Accrington were sort of languishing a little bit, really. It was only at the end of that season where that real spurt where they were just unstoppable.
Trying to get up towards the promotion places, yeah.
Yeah, and we played. The return fixture was right at the end of that season at Radcliffe, and we were both sort of still vying for those promotion positions. But I think we might have been 2-0 up after about 15-20 minutes, and we just folded. And Stanley won 3-2, I think. Smithy scored an header. Jimmy Bell came on the pitch and scared our goalie senseless.
Jimmy got a goal, didn't
he? Yeah.
Phil, you want. So going back to your career, Paul. So eventually you signed for Stanley. I think Stanley, John and Jimmy did try to sign you in the previous season, didn't they? I'm not too sure, but you did eventually turn at Stanley. Paid a transfer fee for you.
Yeah, they tried to sign me in the middle of that season where Stanley went up. So I think it wasn't long after that we played that game at the Crown Ground where I scored a couple against you. I'd played against John and Jimmy's Ashton teams, to be honest, in the season or two before that, and I'd always done okay. So I think I might have been on their radar. But yeah, they came in, and at the time I was quite happy at Radcliffe, and I wanted to see that season through. Obviously, Stanley went up in the end. And I started the next season at Radcliffe Borough, actually. In fact, I played the first game and I scored. We drew 1-1 at home.
2 or 3 games, didn't it? 2 games.
Yeah. And then I got called into the manager's office after a home game at Radcliffe, and he said, "Well, we've had an offer. The money's really good, and basically you go in." So it was. I was happy to go. It was closer for me. I wanted to play at a higher level as well, so everything worked out in the end. Yeah,
you must have been impressive for Eric to part with a big wedge of cash at that level. So you did well to make that happen.
Yeah.
He didn't like wasting any money, did
he? No, he certainly didn't. He certainly liked value for money. I'd like to think he got that from me out of the years over there. But yeah, he was very careful with his money, was Eric.
Yeah, well, so arriving at Stanley, a lot different club than what it is today, what people see as a football league club, wasn't it? You know, back in the days in your introduction, John and Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean, it's year 2000. I think I signed at Accrington. Yeah, it's a completely different world to what it is now. I mean, I'm looking from the outside in now, but the sort of the development around the ground, the finances seemed a lot more settled now. It was chalk and cheese back then, but it was still a well-run non-league club when I joined. Certainly, when we were in the Northern Prem. It was one of the better clubs in that league. There was always clubs with bigger budgets than us, but it was I always thought it was a well-run non-league club. I think it was when we made that step up that's when the finances started getting stretched, and it became more of a.
There's some good players as well, weren't there? You know, it's
brilliant,
not to be underestimated just how good some of the players were around that era. I mean, some of the players were fantastic in that era. I mean, even though we were only part-time, you know, they could have easily, for me, played in the Football League. And now looking at players who are playing in the Football League, you know, it just highlights to me just how good some of those and skillful some of those players were.
Yeah, I mean, going back to when I first signed, players like Russell Payne, you know, was a great winger. Obviously,
Mark Shirley on the other wing, he was a good player, wasn't he?
Mark Shirley, yeah, some really, really good players who've been around the block as well. So we had a good strong outfit at the time. John and Jimmy have always been good at picking players. No matter what level they've been at, they've always seemed to have the fingers in loads of pies and good contacts. And I think that's one of their real strengths. And they've just built on that as they've gone through the leagues, which has been nice to see. But played with some great players throughout the years at Stanley. Some real characters as well.
Yeah, and you're obviously always. I went on the match last night. They've put a picture up in the fan zone for the Hall of Fame, and who should be on the next picture by accident is Lutel James. So obviously you had a great strike partnership with Lutel, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I really enjoyed playing with Lutel. Completely different characters, really. Both of us off the pitch. We got on really well off the pitch. Actually, we had a lot of respect between us, and we just dovetailed straight away. Obviously, I was the target man, won all the headers, held the ball up. He had just that pace, and he was a real sort of dynamo in and around the box. And we just complemented each other really, really well. We must have been an handful to play against, really. He was one of the main factors, really, for dragging us into the conference. He was a big difference when he signed.
Yeah. No, it was a great player. He's doing good stuff in the community as well now, isn't it?
Yeah. He'll say himself. He's from
over in Leeds.
Yeah, it's from quite a deprived area of Leeds, and he's putting a lot back into it, which is great to see.
Yeah, he's developing a few young players who are going on to be, get good careers in the Football League. Malik Wilkes is one guy who he's helped.
Yeah,
it's nice to see. Yeah. So then moving on from there, we eventually get into the conference. Good cup runs, extra. Some good times in the FA Cup. I remember you scoring at Bournemouth. That was a great cup run there.
Yeah. That was memorable. That we all my family came down for that game as well. They were on a few days down there, so it was a really, really nice day. That we should have won that. Actually, we should have won that game. I thought.
Yeah, played well. Yeah, it was a fantastic day out. I mean, you're a bit blasé about it these days with watching Stanley in the Football League and all these trips, but it's difficult to emphasise just how exciting it all was to, go down to the South Coast and watch Stanley down there. It felt like you were going into Europe almost. Yeah, it was good fun. It was good fun. It was,
yeah. Even got to Colchester seemed exotic as well, didn't it, later on in the Cup?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, no, it was good times. And so the revenue from that cup run obviously helped the team, didn't it, going forward, the club? And you managed to, went full time. How did you find that?
Yeah, I think those runs funded the certainly the first years going professional. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It really brought my game, and I think my game really sort of developed as soon as we got into the conference. Really, that just level of football, I think I felt comfortable in it straight away. And then with the extra fitness and just taking football just that seriously, it's you sort of live and breathe it. Then it feels like a job, but it's it's one of the best jobs in the world, isn't it? To get paid for kicking a bag of air about. So yeah, it just really brought me on and my fitness, and that really sustained me. Really helped me play for as long as I did.
Yeah. Concerns that you'd be able to make? Have any concerns you'd be able to make the grade leagues? Whatever in your mind, you might think, well, I've probably gone as far as I could. Obviously, you managed to keep reinventing yourself, and which was great. And going into the Football League, but it must have been a worry. Some of the guys, dropped away at that time, didn't they?
Yeah, I never had any pace. I think if you were reliant on pace, and I think as you get older, it tells ultimately. I think as I got stronger and fitter, I became more durable. I got stronger physically as well, which only added to my game. And as well, once you're playing day in, day out, you're training day in, day out, you begin to learn as a footballer. You know what you're good at, and you tend to put yourself in areas of the pitch where you can show what you're good at, and you can help your team by being in those areas of the pitch. I think what I was guilty of when I was younger is perhaps not knowing what those strengths were and just sticking to those strengths. I just became more focused on what I wanted to do. I mean, I'm not a character that's always sort of shouting and bigging myself up, but I never had any issues at all with confidence and going up through the levels. I probably wish I'd done it a bit sooner, if anything. But yeah, I think I was quite comfortable the further the higher we got, really.
I noticed it, you and one or two other players watching, from outside in. It's not just about being able to run faster, is it? Like, say, you're almost 2 or 3 of you guys, your body shape changed altogether, didn't it? With training every day and not working, doing other jobs and just turning up a couple of nights a week. The difference it makes to your physique and things. I think, especially in your position where you're a bit of a battering ram for us at times, weren't you, up front?
Yeah, that was it. So like I say, it helped me. It really helped me with my game going full time. And you start to eat properly as well, and you take the right things on board, and you start getting input from physio, sports scientists. Not that we had a sports scientist, but we'd have people coming in and we'd have people coming in, sort of students, in pre-season, just trying to get some experience. And I was always open to listening to any sort of tidbits like that, and anything to just sort of help me extend that career. Because I think once I got there, I really enjoyed it, and I just wanted it to carry on as long as I could. So I was happy to take on anything on board, whether it be coaching, food, a rest, anything I found invaluable, really.
Yeah, well, I run a Accrington Stanley Memories site on Facebook, and 1 or 2 people were mentioning about questions for you. One of them were about stepping up into full-time, and about, you always have this unflappable, nice guy approach, and I don't remember you ever getting sent off. I don't think you did. Rarely ever got booked, really. More of a controlled, aggressive way of playing. You're aggressive in a way, but not in a verbally type of thing. So one of the questions were about opponents that you had around that particular era. Were the people who could get under your skin, because nobody seemed to ever ruffle your feathers at all?
Yeah, no, I was quite good at keeping a lid on it, really. I mean, I tend to, if I remember back to games where I didn't perhaps do well, is games where I perhaps maybe lost my rag a little bit, and it was very rare. I can remember one game, and I'm not even sure if it was like an FA Trophy game, and we were playing away at somewhere in Yorkshire, and I was being marked by just a big lug of a centre half who was he must have been about 2 stone overweight, but he just decided that he was just going to knock me off my game. And
give it to you.
Yeah, and he did. And it was a Tuesday night. It was like we'd had a long trip out to, it might have been Worksop, a long trip out there. And he just got under my skin. I was awful. And I think after that, you got a long time sat on that coach when you're driving home. I'm not going to do that again. All it does, it just has a negative impact on me, and he's just basically laughing at me. So very rarely. I mean, obviously, I got difficult opponents. There were players that you play against that were harder than others too. But I always tried to just concentrate on my own game, really, and that was how I just got through things, almost like a bit of a bubble, and tried not to worry too much about who was up against, because most of the centre halves, certainly in that conference, and it tended to be huge units. So you don't want to spend too much time sort of dwelling on it. You just met the best of the attributes that you've got, and just 9 times out of 10, there wasn't many that got the better of me over the years, which is
it was. So we had 3 years in the conference, obviously, before they managed to get into the Football League. I've got to be honest, I never thought we'd get into the Football League. When we got into the conference, I thought it was, as far as we could go in a lot of ways. I thought we might do get around mid-table, but I never saw that season coming. And you obviously scored the goal that took us into the Football League. I think it was done and dusted by then, really, wasn't it? We'd had some great results along the way. I remember going to York. We had a good win at York, and it was just a case of sealing it. But it was an amazing season, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was just we just seemed to ride that crest of a wave. It was like we had a really good mix of players in that team. We had some real ability in Gary Roberts and Ian Craney, who, to be honest, for me was the most naturally gifted player I played with at Accrington. Real quality. Obviously, we had a strong spine as well. I was at the top, and we had Ian in the middle. We were strong at the back, Welshie at the back, and we had the good goalies as well, didn't we? We had Darren Randolph, the two goalies on loan, and Robbie Elliott, who were massive for us. And we just had everything. We had pace, we had aggression, we had strength. But yeah, you always say at the start of the season, I think I can win it. But it was, we started that season pretty slow, really. And again, it's I think Grays were the big favourites, Grays Athletic at the time. I think we beat them on a telly, and then we went on a bit of a run. So yeah, it was surprising. Who'd have thought Accrington had end up in the Football League? But I mean, it wasn't exactly a cakewalk, but we strolled it towards the end.
Yeah, no, it was unbelievable.
2005,
like I said, the
right?
goalkeepers. Yeah, so we had two goalkeepers around that time, like you've just mentioned, Robbie Elliott and Darren Randolph for the first part of the season. Then Robbie Elliott, I still can't believe some of the saves he made. That guy, Robbie Elliott. I mean, obviously went on to have a good career. Both played international football, both of those two.
Yeah,
had a good career at Newcastle, etc., and Charlton, and brilliant. So then we're in the Football League. The first year, it was very difficult, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a tough year. I mean, it's an enjoyable year, but it just seemed a bit of a struggle. We're always in that sort of bottom third of the table. But we, for a club with our resources, I thought we acquitted ourselves okay. Really, it was that you then hope that you can build on that, don't you? Really, for the next couple of seasons.
But I remember John and Jimmy, I think they went out again and played the market, didn't they? I remember got a goalkeeper and a centre-back, David Martin and Godwin Antry, wasn't it, at centre-back in transfer window, and they seemed to shore things up at the back.
Yeah. John and Jimmy working the magic again, spotting players. I mean, I enjoyed that first season. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't like the season before, which was we were winning every week, and it was a shock if we weren't winning. There was issues, I think, off the pitch as well. I think they were starting to tell a little bit. Because I don't think our crowds really went up, did they, Darren? Really?
No, they probably went down.
I think they did. I think that might have been a shock, really. I think Eric, in particular, maybe thought that we'd have got a bit more support from the town. But it is a small town, and it's sandwiched between two well-established Football League clubs in Burnley and Blackburn, so that sort of loyalty, local town loyalty to a Football League club, it takes a bit of time, and hopefully that Accy are sort of benefiting from the work that the club did back then. Now
it almost happened too quick, didn't it? Because we were a lot of people's second team. You get Burnley and Blackburn fans who come and watch us on a day and it was relatively cheap back in those days, wasn't it? And they come and watch us when they weren't playing. Then all of a sudden, here we go, it's another Football League club, and want season tickets and a commitment, etc., and big crowds. And I don't think the town was ready for it in the way that we are probably now. It happened very fast.
It did, and I think the facilities at the ground hadn't kept pace with the development on the pitch, and I think off the pitch probably as well hadn't kept up with the development. But it's what do? Do you want to get into the league and then hope you can stay there, or do you try and build slowly? And I think when you're in that conference, one thing you do realise is there's a lot of big clubs in there, much bigger than Accrington even now. And it's definitely, the longer you're in it, the harder it is to get out. So I think they just made the decision, well, let's try and get out.
Yeah.
And then we'll see how we get on next year, and hopefully people will come and watch. But I mean,
even now, look at what's the National League, don't we, Phil? And the clubs in that National League, it's a strong division. We've been reviewing it on across the pitch.
Yeah, you've got Notts County down there this year, and then last year you had Leighton Orient. They're back up now, but yeah, I mean that national conference, you're starting to see a lot of clubs in there that maybe had been in the football league for a lot of years, and then it also seems like it's a place where a lot of investors are looking at as a level to jump in and then try to work a club up from that level.
Yeah, that's right, Phil. I mean, if you look at some of the clubs that have come up and that have carried on through the leagues, your Crawleys, your Fleetwoods, that's what they've managed to come in, and then they've had that financial backing that's helped them to take through the next couple of leagues up to League One. So we didn't quite have that at the time. So it was
just that great management by John and Jimmy that have really made the difference, and then few lucky breaks here and there, and then now Andy's come along and finally giving the club a little bit of financial stability.
Yeah,
it is a difficult league, and like Paul said, for every team that's going through the divisions, there's always another one that's going the opposite direction. Like we said, with you likes of Notts County, and I mean Wrexham. I don't know how long they've been out of the football league now, but and compared to Accrington, they're massive clubs. You've even Stockport County, they've only just managed to get back into the conference, and I remember the first year that we played County in the Football League. I think it was a Friday night game, wasn't it, Paul? And
Welsh, yeah.
Welsh has got the goal in it from I don't know how many yards.
Absolute screamer, yeah.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, it's been difficult. So going back to your career, Paul, we had a few years back in the Football League. Things were levelling off a little bit, usually in the lower half of the table. And then you managed to have a loan spell at Bradford City. How did that come about?
Yeah, there was money issues right the way through, to be honest, while we're in the Football League, but certainly in that sort of third year, there was ownership issues as well. There was a I can't quite remember his name, Dave.
Dave O'Neill.
Yeah, Dave came in, and there was some sort of transition of ownership, I think, had been agreed, and it was a mess financially, and the club had mentioned to me about finances and things like that. Bradford came in. Obviously, it was an open secret, really, that the club's finances were tight. We were there or thereabouts in terms of safe. It was about March time.
That was deadline day back then, wasn't it? I think around about March.
Yeah, and they were pushing for promotion via the playoffs. They'd had a difficult season. I think they'd expected to just bounce straight out of that league, so they'd had issues as well. And I just got a phone call. It was Dave O'Neill that rang me, said this is the situation. Basically, I would have been off the wage bill for 2 months, which appealed to them. And I thought, well, will I get a chance again if they get to Wembley? Will they get to the playoffs? Will I ever get a chance again? I'll be 30. What would it be then? It'd be 2009, that. So I'd be 35, 34. So there's not many more chances I was going to get. So the club were happy for me to go. I thought, okay, then let's give it a go. Didn't work out ultimately. There was a lot of lone players in that Bradford dressing room. It was quite a difficult one to go into. And the team just hadn't been performing most of the season. I think I went there and it didn't change the state of affairs at all. So it was just, in the end, it was, with hindsight, it wasn't a great move, but it's one of those at the time. You make a decision based on what you think at the time, and it felt like the right call at the time. But it made it difficult coming back as well. Ultimately, thinking about it to Accrington, wasn't quite the same when I came back.
Yeah, you you came back for a short spell, and then it was off to Morecambe then, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I went to Morecambe. The club had come to me in the summer actually with a couple of options about changing. A change had to be made that season, I think, and the sooner the better for both parties. There wasn't a falling out. It was just a case of it suited the club. And once you sort of feel that as a player as well, you don't really feel like you've got a choice.
Yeah, the time was right just to move on.
Yeah, but Morecambe, I knew a lot of the lads there because I'd played against them for years. It wasn't too far for me to go. They give me another year on my contract, so they basically took over the contract from Accrington, and they basically said, "Well, we'll give you another year if you play so many games," which I thought I would do. So I went there, enjoyed it. We got to the playoffs that season. It was a really good experience. Squad in that first year at Morecambe, we got to the playoffs. It didn't quite make it to the final, but we had a good season. I enjoyed my football again, so it just gave me a new lease of life, really. And it's a very similar club to Accrington. It's a small sort of underdog style club, if you like, Lancashire club, sort of rooted in non-league, if you like. But I enjoyed the time there. I enjoyed playing for Sammy McElroy and Mark Lillis. They both played to a ripe old age as well, so they sort of knew how to look after sort of a player in his autumnal years, shall we say.
Maybe you want to do this one, Phil. So talking about career after football, and maybe, we spoke to Brett about what it's like to leave football, and maybe different for Paul because he's came into the game late and he had an education, etc. So
yeah, because that's one of the things is like you said earlier, you have a great career where you're out kicking around a bag of wind, and then that comes to an end. And now looking at your Twitter and things like that, I understand that you've come to have a successful career in business after football as well.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to have a career when I played part-time football, semi-professional football, Phil. So that gives you a sort of base to go back to, really. So I was lucky in that regard. I think a lot of the young players nowadays, especially who've been in football right from leaving school, it's more of a culture shock to them when they finish football. And I was ready for it, really. And I think it makes you a bit more grounded, I think, if you've been in the real world as well. So it didn't hold any fears for me going back to a proper job, if you like. So in the end, I was quite ready to make that leap back. I enjoyed my time, but it was time to sort of go back to business. So yeah, so I'm financial advisor. I specialise in helping people plan for their retirements. So that's what I do. I'm based locally. I'm only based 10 minutes from the football ground, from Accrington's ground. I live locally. I live in Great Harwood. So I still see a lot of the same people, speak to a lot of the same people. I mean, my daughters work at the football ground. They sell pies in the Clayton end. So they're carrying on the Mullin name at the football club. But yeah, I've gone back to the non-football life.
I would assume then that would probably be one of your biggest pieces of advice to young footballers out there, is to always have that in the back of their mind as far as what are the plans, what's the football career ends, because it sounds like that made things a much smoother transition for you. And also as a financial advisor, I'm assuming that maybe you're advising some footballers out there also.
When I retired in 2011, I did a year with a company that were the advisors for the Professional Footballers Association. So we'd go into football clubs and speak to young players, or in fact all players, about the pension scheme that the PFA, which is the Footballers Union over EFL, there's a pension scheme that footballers can contribute to, and they can draw on that when they stop playing. But certainly young players coming into the game now, they can't touch that pension until they're in their 50s. So it was trying to get that message over. What are you going to do to fill that gap? If you're lucky enough to play professional football for 8, 9, 10 years, unless you're playing right at the top, you're still going to have to get a job, pay the bills once you retire from football. So it was trying to get that over, but it's not an easy message to get over to young men that have got all their focus on becoming a professional footballer, and they don't really want to think about anything else. It's more about getting in the team, then get the car, get the house. It's that sort of mentality that we sort of went into clubs trying to sort of just get them thinking about what they're going to do when they do eventually hang up the boots.
Yeah, I'm sure that when someone's out there and they're 23, 24 years old and they're signing their first professional contract, they're not thinking about, okay, well, what am I going to do from 35 to 50?
Yeah, and a lot of those lads that you sat in front of as well, they won't actually play till they're 35. It's there's not many that can play for that amount of period time. My brother was my brother John. Obviously, I played with him at Accrington for a short spell. John left school and went through all the leagues in England. He played in the Premier League down to League Two. Played for Sunderland, Burnley, Rotherham. John had a great career, but it's rare that you can play for that length of time, and it's not everybody can do. So it's important that you do make other plans. But like you said, Phil, you've got other priorities at 23, 24. I had, to be honest. But
I think we all do.
Yeah, it's do as I say, not as I do.
Now, one thing I did want to ask you about a little bit is, first off, congratulations on recently being named as one of the first 10 members of the Accrington Stanley Hall of Fame. But who are some of the guys that you played with that maybe aren't the first people on everybody else's radar that you would like to see going in the future? Who are some guys you played with that you think are deserving of the honor when they make the future announcements for the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of names spring to mind. Really, I suppose what did they base it on? Did they base it on longevity at a club or impact? I think if you're looking at impact, I think probably Ian Craney, Gary Roberts had a big impact. Maybe not at the club for the sort of length of time that I was, but in terms of impact that they had on the team, and has helped the team and the club develop on the pitch. I think they're two names. Stalwarts like Kavanagh, Peter Kavanagh. He was a great servant for the club and a good player. The danger of picking people, Phil, that you played with and forgetting others is you get dug out when someone hears that you've not mentioned them. So, but I was pleased to see Billy Key get in. I played with Billy for a short spell when he first came to the club. So I fully agreed with the fans' choice there. I thought that was a good pick.
Yeah, he's certainly been huge for the club over the past few seasons.
Yeah, he has. Yeah. So yes, I suppose if three names had to spring to mind, it would probably be the three that I've already mentioned. I'd have thought, but no doubt I've missed somebody off.
Well, that's always the problem when, like you said, when you start listing off. But I just figured that maybe there was somebody that you had played with that maybe wasn't the guy that was out there putting the ball in the net that you knew was an intricate part of the team, and that's kind of what I wanted to hear about.
Actually, while you said that now, the name that does spring to mind is Andrew Proctor. Played a lot of games for the club. I think he's probably played the second amount after me, and unheralded at times. Maybe he wasn't as pretty on the eye as Ian Craney, but was there for a long time. Played a lot of good games. Very rarely had a bad game. Andy Proctor. He had a massive impact in getting the club to where they are now, because he stayed at the club in the league longer than I did. I obviously moved on. So Andy Proctor, yeah, I probably should have mentioned Andy first.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's one of the things is that every team kind of has that one guy that's consistent on the pitch 90 minutes every night and maybe doesn't get in the highlight films, but that's the guy that, at the end of the day, everybody in the locker room knows that's the guy I want to go to war with every night.
Yeah, no.
Well, let me ask you this: was there anything that some advice for footballers out there? Anything you wanted to add in?
Just look after yourself as a player as best you can, and play as long as you can. And I think if you get to the end of the career and you've done that, you don't tend to have regrets really, because I didn't really leave anything out there. My body just basically said, "No, Paul, come on, that's enough now." So I was lucky in that regard.
Well, yeah, you were a guy that you scored 12 goals at the age of 35 for Morecambe. So you played over 3,000 minutes that year too. So you certainly we're still playing at a high level very late in your career.
Yeah,
it's been a brilliant ride, really, being a Stanley supporter. From a few hundred watching, now we can get a few thousand on the Crown, and the ground's looking great. And the Alts put the infrastructure in now, just to keep us safe and keep us moving in the right direction. Obviously,
how was the game last night?
The game last night was a nightmare. Yeah, you don't forget these 3-2 in a Heredia when you're watching play. When you turn up, I remember 1 or 2, to be honest, when you were playing. We did it a few times when we were winning 2-0. Remember in the cup against Huddersfield once we were 2-0 up and we lost 3-2, but it happens. They're etched in your memory, aren't they? That's it, where you don't remember when you won and lost 1-0, but you're 2-0 up with 10 minutes to go and you lose. You don't forget those in Heredia.
No. I mean, I'm only sort of looking at stuff on social media. It does seem to be sort of positivity about the performance, doesn't there? I think I think Coley was. I think did he say it's a freak in how that result came about? But I think as long as you can see sort of this sort of performance levels at this stage of the season, it's still early, isn't it? It just gives you that bit of hope, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I've just got one last question for you, Paul. So just talking about John and Jimmy, I think it's just that we touch on them, and a few comments from yourself about the type of characters they are, and B, what you think of their achievements.
Yeah, I mean the sort of characters they are now to the sort of characters they were when I first joined Accrington back in 2000. I think they both agree that they've mellowed over the years. They were a lot louder when I first first signed, in terms of in the dressing room and what they're shouting at us or what message they're trying to get over to us as players. They've definitely calmed down a lot. I mean, I watched them because I was there 9.5 years or so. I watched them develop as coaches and as managers, and I'm really impressed with them. I mean, I always when people ask me about them, I always mention what my brother says about them. My brother played for some decent managers, who'd had long careers in professional football, and he always said that John Coleman is the best communicator at half time in a dressing room. He just gets his message over really well. And Jimmy's a good foil for him as well. They trust each other implicitly. And they really help my game, because one thing that and you mentioned it earlier, Darren, I'm not outwardly aggressive, but they've just instilled that sort of desire to win and not to lose. That's one thing that they gave to my game, and just a belief as well in me. And sometimes you need that to get you through seasons. And I've got an awful lot of time for him. I think over the years they've had a bad press in terms of maybe the sort of personas on the pitch or in the dressing rooms or whatever. But just genuine people. And they're extremely now proficient at what they do. They've been doing it for such a long time. They've got good contacts. They can spot a player. They know what sort of player will fit into the group, what sort of player they will need to improve the group. And that's a real skill, that. So, yeah, I have a lot of time for them. Really pleased that they're doing well. And, as long as they're at the helm, then the club's in safe hands.
Yeah, I agree. And you are right. They have now, or to a certain degree, but watching them last night when that third goal went in, they've still got the fire in the belly.
Oh, don't get me wrong, I didn't want to be in that dressing room. There's not a cat and else chance I wanted to be in that dressing room last night. It would have been a lot worse. It would have been worse in 2001.
Yeah, me and my dad walked past the dressing rooms on the way out from the ground, and I said that to my dad. I said, I wouldn't want to be going in there now, would you? He went, no.
That was a great piece of information regarding what you had said about John Coleman in the locker room at halftime, because I really do think, to me, that a football manager really makes the biggest difference in that locker room at halftime, and it just seems like that the managers that are good at making those halftime adjustments are the ones that end up being successful and having their teams win the championships.
Yeah, exactly. It's one thing analysing a game. It's the other thing then communicating it to the players, isn't it, about how you can counter that or how you can improve. And that's one thing that he's very good at. I mean, I listened to John throughout most of my career, John Coleman, that is, whereas my brother had obviously exposure to more managers than I did. So, I mean, for my brother John, that's praise indeed, that.
Yeah, it's a great accolade, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us on the Across the Pitch, Paul. We'll make sure we retweet it and get it out there on Twitter and Facebook that you've joined us. We really appreciate you coming on. It's been fantastic. Really interesting to speak to you.
Yeah, no problem. Cheers, Darren. Cheers, Phil. Nice to talk to you.
Yes, absolutely, Paul. And thank you again for coming on. And we'll have the episode out shortly and let you know as soon as everything is live and published. And thank you again so much for your time. It really means a tremendous amount to us. And congratulations again on the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Cheers, all the best. Ta-ra.
Bye.
Cheers.
See ya.